Do you believe a bridge once killed thousands of Mongol soldiers? In the year 1285, the Tran army retreated toward the Red River, leaving behind a fragile pontoon bridge. The UN troops, thinking they had cornered the Tran king, rushed their entire force onto the bridge. But then, the bridge collapsed. Soldiers drowned. Many were swallowed by the river. This breaking bridge strategy saved the entire nation. Want to hear more genius tactics like this? Comment Tran Quoc Tuan below. There was a piece of writing that killed no one, yet made an entire nation rise and take up swords. In 1285, just before the Great War with the Mongols, Tran Hung Dao wrote a call to arms and sent it to the entire army. He didn't command, he appealed. He didn't scold, he awakened. In every word, he reminded them of loyalty to the king, filial piety to parents, the pain of lost homes, the debt owed to the nation. And he ended with a vow of life and death. If your majesty wishes to surrender, please cut off my head first. This proclamation was so powerful that thousands of soldiers wept and begged to fight. The whole nation awakened. The proclamation to the generals, a piece of writing that could turn ordinary people into heroes. Do you want me to recite the entire text in the next video? Do you believe one fallen head could bring down an entire dynasty? In 1427, when the Ming Empire sent 100,000 troops to rescue their general Wang Tong, they believed that once General Liu Thang arrived, Dai Viet would collapse. But as the army reached Chilang, Liu Thang walked into an ambush and was beheaded. His head was sent straight to Dongquan Fortress. And shortly after, the Ming army fell apart. Wang Tong surrendered. One head, in exchange for a nation's independence. Lei Loi didn't just fight battles, he knew the right moment and the right head to take. Comment Chi Long if you want me to retell this battle with animated maps. A silk brocade box decided who would lead the nation when the enemy came. Before his passing, Tran Hung Dao left behind no jewels or treasures, but a silk brocade box containing the essentials of military strategy, the distilled wisdom of resisting the Mongol invasions. But he didn't hand it over lightly. The one he chose to open the box was Tran Quang Kai, a man with both military talent and unwavering righteousness. This was more than passing down knowledge. It was passing down the flame of resistance. The Vietnamese people understood. That box held not just books, but the fate of Dai Viet. If you had a silk brocade box in your life, who would you entrust it to? Comment Pass the Flame if you want me to continue the story of how Tran Hung Dao trained the next generation. The whole world trembled before the hooves of the Mongols, but they failed in Vietnam. Why? The Mongol Empire once crushed China, Russia, Persia, and conquered over half of Asia. But when they invaded Dai Viet, they were defeated not once, but 3 times. Not because our army was stronger, but because the Mongols couldn't fight one thing. Tropical jungles, plus guerrilla warfare, plus an entire nation rising to resist. Dai Viet never gave them a decisive battle. Instead, we turned the entire country into a blood-soaked trap. The Mongols won everywhere they went, except one place, Vietnam. They didn't fear armies, they feared the invisible resilience of an entire people. If you ever thought Vietnam was small, remember this: we were the first crack that shattered the mightiest empire on earth. Comment, Mongols feared Vietnam if you want me to break down each campaign in detail. The whole world bowed before the Mongols. But Vietnam, we dared to behead their envoy and send the corpse back. In 1284, Kublai Khan sent an envoy demanding Dai Viet's surrender. It was the usual script. Most nations trembled at such a message. But the Vietnamese were different. The Tran king ordered the Mongol envoy beheaded, sealed the head in a box, and sent it back. It wasn't arrogance, it was a direct declaration. You want war? We are ready. Mongol envoys were considered untouchable. To kill one was to openly challenge the most terrifying war machine in human history. Beheading a Mongol envoy wasn't madness, it was sheer, unmatched courage. Comment, Vietnamese don't bow, if you want me to tell the legendary counterattack that followed. No food, no sleep, lying in the mud for 3 days. Did a Vietnamese general turn his own troops into live bait? In 1285, as the Mongol army advanced deep into the Red River Delta, General Tran Nyat Duat devised a crazy plan. He ordered his entire unit to wade into the swamp, remove their boots, and hide among the reeds for 3 days. No fires, no noise. When the UN troops carelessly marched in, thinking it was a dead zone, the Tran soldiers suddenly rose from the ground like ghosts and struck, shattering the enemy. This was one of the rare moments in military history when an entire army turned itself into the living dead, just to deliver one decisive blow. Not everyone understands that war is about patience, and the Vietnamese were willing to pay in sweat, hunger, and even their lives for victory. Comment, wade through mud for the nation if you think this is the craziest yet most effective tactic in history. Before a single strike was made, the king knew the enemy was coming. Before the first rain fell, he foresaw a flood. Was Tran Nhan Tung a prophet? In 1284, before the second Mongol invasion, King Tran Nhan Tung gathered his ministers and said, "The enemy is coming, but not just them. This year, the floods will be great." No one believed him. But months later, the Mongols really did invade. And then, a historic flood drowned the entire Red River Delta in white water. Thanks to the flood, the Mongol army got bogged down, their supplies spoiled, and their attack routes thrown into chaos. Dai Viet launched a counterattack immediately after. King Tran Nhan Tung wasn't just a brilliant strategist. He foresaw shifts in war, in nature, as if guided by some supernatural intuition. History never tells us what powers he used. Only this: he was right. Every single time. Comment, Vietnamese wisdom fears no one, if you believe this was no coincidence. A man was buried alive, yet rose to become king and shook the forbidden city to its core. Legend has it that Nguyen Hue, before taking the throne, was once betrayed by his own men and buried alive. He narrowly escaped death, but instead of taking revenge, he returned stronger, uniting the fractured Tai Son forces and crushing all internal rebellion. And then he stunned the Qing Emperor Qianlong. In just 6 days, he marched north, shattered 290,000 troops, took Thang Long, and forced the invaders to flee back to China. The man once buried alive became Vietnam's greatest military genius. Have you ever been pushed to your breaking point? Comment, resurrection. If you want me to tell the lightning-fast battle that terrified even the Forbidden City. A foreign general, worshipped by the Vietnamese? Sounds like a joke, but it's true. During the Ly Song Wars, a general of the Song dynasty named Nguyen Ba Ngoc led an invasion into Dai Viet. But unlike typical invaders, he was no savage. After defeat, he took his own life to preserve his honor. He didn't loot, he didn't harm civilians. To the Vietnamese, he was a man of virtue, more like a noble Vietnamese general than an enemy. Later on, people living near the border built a shrine to honor him, a rare gesture of respect for a foe who upheld human dignity. Vietnam may be the only country to worship a sword-bearing enemy, if that enemy was worthy. In Vietnamese history, it's not blood we glorify, but righteousness. Comment, an enemy but not dishonorable, if you want me to tell you about the 19-year-old girl who made the Ming dynasty tremble. At 19, she led troops into battle. The Qing dynasty trembled at her name. Bui Thi Xuan, the legendary female general of the Tai Son dynasty, was known for riding elephants, shooting arrows, training soldiers, and commanding armies, all from the age of just 19. She wasn't just a symbol of ancient feminism. She was a nightmare for the Qing invaders. Under her command, Vietnamese troops shattered enemy lines, forcing them to retreat in chaos. She once broke through enemy ranks to rescue her husband, then turned right back around to lead an assault on the Qing command post. The Qing court even issued a special order. If you encounter General Bui Thi Xuan, strike fast, retreat faster, and avoid prolonged combat at all costs. A woman in plain clothes made an empire think twice. Comment, fearless female general, if you want me to tell the story of the commander who made the Forbidden City fall. The Forbidden City, the heart of China, once fell under threat by a Vietnamese warrior. In 1789, Emperor Quang Trung led a lightning-fast march from Phu Xuan to the north in just 5 days, crushing 290,000 Qing troops. After the great victories at Ngoc Hoi, Dong Da, he didn't stop at Thang Long. Quang Trung boldly sent a war ultimatum straight to the Forbidden City, threatening to march all the way to Beijing if the Qing didn't withdraw. The result? Panic in the Qing court. They were forced to grant him kingship and plead for peace. Chinese historical records confirm the only time the Forbidden City trembled at the approach of a foreign army, it came from the south, and it only took a few days to reach the capital's doorstep. Quang Trung didn't just fight. He made his enemies too afraid to fight back. Comment, lightning like Quang Trung, if you want me to tell the next story of the fire that once burned French warships in Hanoi. One sentence silenced even the mighty Mongol general. That man was Tran Binh Trong. In 1285, as the Mongol Yuan army stormed into our land, they captured the famed General Tran Binh Trong. They tried to bribe him into surrender, promising him a northern crown and a life of luxury. But he replied with just one sentence, "I would rather be a ghost of the south than a king of the north." That single line became an eternal fortress of Vietnamese loyalty and honor. And soon after, he was executed without fear, his head held high till the very end. Comment, Ghost of the South. If you want me to tell the next story, the mad counterattack of Tran Quoc Tuan after Tran Binh Trong's death.